Hey gang, welcome back to another video. Now if you're anything like me, you've noticed that projections have shown up in haunts more and more frequently over the last couple of years. But the same question always remains. Where do you put the projector? Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? And if it's outdoors, where does it go? Well, I think I've got a solution for that. Let me show you what I mean. I was recently sent the new HP1 projector from the folks at AAXA to check out, and I thought, what better project for a projector than a projector housing? So to get started, I'll figure out the dimensions of the Tombstone. Since I may want to swap the projector for a light or something else in the future, I'm making the interior space larger than what's needed for this pocket-sized projector, but it basically breaks down to 4 parts: the lid, the front, the side, and the base. After a quick measurement, I could start figuring out how big this Tombstone needed to be. With my measurements in hand, it was time to cut down my XPS insulation foam and test fit for any mismeasurements before I give the foam a quick sanding to flatten all the edges. Then it's time to spray down the surface of the foam with water, apply some Gorilla Glue, and use bamboo skewers to hold the foam in place while the glue sets up. While I wait for the glue to fully dry, I'm going to use my palm router to add a decorative edge to the base of the Tombstone. This is one of my favorite tricks to help give your Tombstone a more interesting look. It's not only a nice decorative touch, but it really helps to break up the hard edges and makes it look more realistic. There were a few corners that I accidentally gouged with the router, so I'm going to use a razor blade to make those mistakes into a feature. I mean, every Tombstone needs some aging, right? With the detailed edge done, I'll add on the top, and once it's dried, I'll take my palm sander to the front edge to make it flush with the front. Then it's a bit of hand sanding to really smooth everything out, and I can call it a day. Now that it's had overnight to dry, I'll give it a quick look over, and then it's time to give some texture with water and a propane torch. This is my favorite way to take a boring chunk of foam and completely change it into an old, eroded slab of stone. Just spritz water over the entire surface, You're looking to create as many droplets of water as possible, and then take your torch and quickly move it across the surface of the foam to create a stone-like texture. Once I'm happy with how it looks, it's time to glove up and grab some caulking to fill in any of the gaps in the foam. You can build up any areas where the gaps are bigger or deeper, just allow it to dry before applying additional layers of caulk. With all the building done, it's time to get down to business and start painting. I'm using Drylok masonry sealer because it's weather resistant and has a sandy texture that resembles concrete. It's also thick enough to further fill in any gaps or seams in your foam. When I'm applying the Drylok, I like to paint a base layer, let that dry, then apply a second layer in a pouncing motion to build up the texture even more. Now while we wait for the paint to dry, let's check out this little projector. So AAXA sent me their new HP1 projector to check out because it's geared towards haunters. It's got all of the connection types you could need, plus a micro SD card reader if you want to use your own files. It's small, rechargeable, comes preloaded with a bunch of Spectral Illusions Halloween projection videos, but it's also a Bluetooth speaker. So no more buying a projector just for Halloween use. Now you've got a reason to use it off-season too. Now let's talk about the epitaph. Off camera, I designed and cut this plaque on my Glowforge, but it's going to need a much more interesting paint job if it's going to be added to this tombstone. So I grabbed a few colors of spray paint to create a rust-colored base, starting with a brownish orange. Then I added in just a hint of yellow, and then a bit of brown to give it some variation before using my blow dryer to speed up the drying process. Then it was on to another favorite technique of mine, using salt to create a stencil. I'm using kosher salt and applying it randomly across this plaque. When I spray my top color over it, whatever's covered by the salt will remain the rusty base color. So after a bit of bronze spray paint and some help from my blow dryer, it was time to brush away all the salt to expose the rusty base layer below. The next step is to add in a bit of depth with some brown wax paint. This helps to create the look of grime in the corners and can be randomly applied and worked around the surface with a brush. If you find it's too heavy in areas, you can blot it away with a rag until you're happy with how it looks. To bring in a bit of contrast, I'll be highlighting the raised lettering and edge band with a bit of gold acrylic paint. I'm not going for full coverage here, just enough to catch the light and help the epitaph stand out from the background. If using a brush isn't your thing, apply a bit to your finger and gently rub it across the lettering. The last touch for this plaque is to give it a whitewash. This will mute your paint finish, but it helps make it look like it's been out in the sun and the elements for decades and just adds a layer of realism to the finish. Now let's get back to the tombstone. Off camera, I got to start on weathering using a mix of brown, black, and green acrylic paint mixed with water and applied with a spray bottle. I'll apply multiple layers, letting it dry between coats to build up that really old, grimy appearance. And once everything was dry, I attached the plaque to the tombstone with a bit of Gorilla Glue and set it out for a quick glamour shot. This combination of stone and metal helps to give some variety to our collection of tombstones, and the fact that it hides a projector at the same time is a win all around. Now let's check out the projector. The HP1 may not be the brightest, but that can sometimes be a positive, especially if you're looking to add a subtle effect to your haunt. Regardless, this little projector speaker would make for a great addition to any haunt, especially when you're looking to add that little extra something to make visitors wonder, how'd they do that? Now I know a tombstone may not fit for every application, but hopefully this video helped to open your thought process up about different ways you might be able to hide a projector in plain sight. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, but most importantly, go make something.